Hi, I'm Joan Cartan-Hansen, and welcome to Science Trek, and welcome to Micron Technology. We're here today to answer your questions about robots. And joining me today are Dean Klein and Josh Johnston. Thank you both for being here.
Thanks, great to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, let's go to your questions.
Hello, my name is Gabby and I'm from Galileo. My question is, what is the most complicated thing you can make a robot do?
So with robots, when you define what's complicated, it's different than how you define it for a person. And this is one of the biggest differences between what people can do and what robots can do. So people are good at a lot of different things. Robots are usually only good at one or two things, but the robots are very, very good at those one or two things. So when we talk about building a robot that really looks and functions like a person, that's really far off for us because that's considered to be a complicated task for a robot. But doing something like being able to operate in a very fine space and manufacture something with very small parts over and over and over again without getting tired, robots can do that relatively easily. So it's hard to think about complexity with robots because they're so different from people. And that's really the challenge that we have right now, is making robots more robust to situations that they were not specifically designed for. Otherwise, they really have to work in special spaces that are oftentimes constructed for them, like the manufacturing spaces that have special lighting, special safety measures, and special access so that the robots can get to the places that they need to get.
Next, we'd like to know, could a robot be made waterproof?
Absolutely. In fact, there are robots that even look like fish that are swimming under the top of the water in the ocean. So yes, they can be waterproof. There are other robots that float on the surface, and both of these types of robots are used for exploration and monitoring purposes.
There are a lot of robots that are used in the oil and gas industry for drilling underwater, where it's not safe for divers to go for very long periods of time. These robots are able to take pieces of pipe and weld them together underwater and perform other tasks that if we were going to send a diver down would take much longer, would be much less safe. So there are many waterproof robots right now, because actually under the water is a very good place to send robots, since it's a very dangerous place for people to go.
My name is Kyle and I go to Galileo STEM Academy, and if I could ask a famous scientist anything, it would be, if you could program a robot to do anything, what would it be?
I'm very interested in robots that can drive. So I've spent a lot of the time that I've spent programming robots to drive cars. And that's an interesting problem. You can see more and more of the technologies that were developed on robotic cars becoming available on cars that you can go down to the dealership and buy. So my answer for that question is I would work on cars that drive themselves, because that's what I've done.
I'd like to see more robots applied in dangerous jobs. So those jobs, for instance, where people are getting hurt every day, in coal mines, for instance, or diamond mines, dirty, nasty jobs that are just too dangerous for people. Of course, even if we put robots in those positions, there would be some people that would object to that.
Hi, my name is Mason and I go to Galileo STEM Academy. My question is, how many years away are we from having human-like robots?
I think we're probably about 20 years away from having human-like robots. And if you talked to somebody 20 years ago, they probably would have told you the same thing. So it's very difficult for us to figure out this answer, because in some ways we keep making progress. The robots we have now are more like people than they used to be. As we do that, though, we keep realizing how hard it is to actually make a robot be like a person. So we keep making advancements, but we also keep realizing that that goal is more difficult than we thought that it would be. So this is one of the things that people who are working in robotics are working on right now. There's a lot of different problems that they have to solve. So one of them is to be able to walk around like a person, to have feet and legs that function like a person. One of the hardest tasks for robots right now is actually opening doors. doorknobs are extremely difficult to grasp with the kinds of hands that we can put on robots. So we can build robots that can work in an assembly line and can do very, very, very fine manipulations that a person can't do, but it's difficult to get them to open a door. So it's tasks like that that we keep finding that seem like they should be easy, and they turn out to be much more difficult the more that we learn about them.
Hi, my name is Garen and I go to Galileo STEM Academy, and my question is, what would you do to stop artificial intelligence from surpassing human intelligence?
I'm not sure we need to stop this. Maybe we should allow artificial intelligence to exceed human intelligence. Maybe that would help us solve some of the difficult challenges in this world that we as humans don't seem to be able to solve yet. Problems like world hunger, for instance, or perhaps climate change. So maybe artificial intelligence is okay.
There are already things that robots do better than people do, and there are many things that people do better than robots. So this question is interesting because in many ways artificial intelligence is higher than human intelligence. In most ways it's still not. So the real question is how we can find ways to develop robotic intelligence and apply it in ways that make humans healthier and safer and and have more of the things that we like to enjoy. So we usually try to develop robots looking for areas that we call the 3 Ds: dull, dirty, and dangerous. These are the types of things that we want robots to do for us because nobody wants to do things that are dull, dirty, and dangerous. So that's the area that we've focused most of our energy. And places that doing things that people like to do, we really aren't very interested in advancing robotic capability there because nobody really wants to buy a robot that does that. So there'll be many things that people are always going to be better at than robots.
Jaron would like to know, do robots die?
Robots are made of mechanical parts, and those parts do tend to wear out. Sometimes those parts can be replaced or rebuilt and the robot can be put back into service. Other times the robot is just, it's gotten too old, and maybe there's new robot technology that will do the job better or faster. And so those robots will be replaced, and the power plug gets pulled and those robots are no more of use.
Robots aren't alive, so robots can't die by that definition. But they do wear out, they do get old, and they do get replaced by newer robots.
Sorry, but we've run out of time. My thanks to Dean and Josh for answering questions.
Thanks, it's been a lot of fun.
It was a good time.
My thanks also to the folks here at Micron for hosting us. Now, if you want to learn more about this topic, check out the robots area on the Science Trek website. You'll find facts, links, games, our robot broadcast show, and lots more. And every week, check out my blog for the latest science news for kids, all at idahoptv.org. Thanks for joining us for Science Trek, the web show.